Howdy folks. Today I wanted to show off a few of the new cabinet handles I've designed. I designed 10 a couple of months ago and they were really popular. I wanted to come back to it. I really enjoyed designing them. Quite like the idea of designing these products and these shapes, which are, their entire purpose is to be tactile. Yeah, it has to work as a handle, but with a handle obviously you interface with a handle every time you use it. Yeah, and I just really enjoy designing these things where the tactility is part of the visual design as well. So all of these have, obviously they work as handles, you have to be able to grab a hold of them, but they also have like something of a theory behind how they're meant to feel in the hand and how you interact with them, and then that how you interact with them is what gives them the character. So I've got 8 here. I've actually got some more, but I'm saving them for a separate video because I've not actually fully refined the design yet. But you've probably seen some of them actually on my Instagram. Some of the other ones are, they're using reaction diffusion, which is just, it's a way of making shapes and organic coral-like shapes that are they're essentially procedurally generated, and I'm using the organic design to inform the shape, and they look really cool. I've only got 2 of them and they're a little bit trickier to print, so I'm just focusing on these 8 for today. So let's just start off with them and I'll just go through each one of them and we can have a little look. So this one here is a really simple one in which my idea was that would be how you interact with it. You would come in like that and pull it open, and that's how it's been designed. Now with 3D printing, obviously these shallow surfaces are obviously quite challenging for 3D printers because you're printing in, you know, layers like this and it gives you artifacts. So I actually just leaned into it here. I've made it so this top is a dish where effectively the rings then become perfectly concentric and they become a feature of it. This printing texture becomes almost a little bit like, you know, when something's been machined, it looks a little bit like that. So yeah, that's what I've done with that one, and I'm really happy with how that one's come out. This one is one of those ones that I feel like you wouldn't really get a handle this deeply cut with other manufacturing methods because they'd either have to be cut, which would make them expensive, vacuum, injection molded, and these shapes here are very difficult for injection molding. You would need a draft on them. But yeah, so this could go either this way or this way. And obviously this one's just designed to be grabbed. This is probably more of a classical handle actually, but I just thought that these, you could obviously have them mounted on an angle as well. And it's really, I would never use this particular handle because I feel like I would never get it straight and I'd constantly be looking at this handle that would be 1 degree off and losing my marbles. But yeah, it's another design that I think's come out pretty good. These are all designed in Plasticity as well. Now this one is quite similar to this one in its top finish, but it's offset. So this one, I was thinking more this would be the interaction for opening it, so you would come at it from the top. So the idea, I think this would actually be quite good for a lower down cupboard like handle, like a cabinet that's lower down on the ground, because you would reach down to there to pull it. And again, we've got that same shape, the same patterning on the top, which people go into a great deal of effort to get rid of patterns like this on the 3D prints, and I do understand it, but I think sometimes leaning into it's the answer, and I think it almost does look machined. Obviously, except for the fact that it's this wonderful neon green plastic. Obviously, you could print it in whatever colour you wanted. I think this one here is my favourite. Now, it just looks very much like a classic doorknob, but the whole thing is based around this being the interaction of the thumb coming in, and I just find this really satisfying. This shape was actually, I took a little 3D scan of my thumb and actually placed my thumb and used that to inform the dip. Unnecessary, but I just did the scan on my phone and I think it just works out really nice. And this is one for me is really tactile because then this curve here isn't perfectly smooth, so when you're grabbing it like that, you do actually get some purchase on it. So I think out of these 8, this one is my favourite, even though it looks possibly at first glance like it's one of the more basic ones. Quite a lot of thought went into this one, and it is very satisfying to grab a hold of. This one here is really basic in some ways. It's ribbed. It's another one that you would come in like this, but the idea being that your thumb then interfaces with this surface here, which is very tactile. It's ribbed. It's actually a little bit rough. If you can pick up the sound, a little bit of 3D print ASMR there. Yeah, so this one's quite like rough, but I quite like that interaction as well. It also works on the vertical like this, but your finger slides with the grip there, and when I did design it I was thinking this, so I'm pleased with that one as well. And then this one here is a real stubby boy, and it plays into the same idea of like using the 3D printing pattern on the top. This is like really like classical in the way that it is a doorknob, but this is really shallow, so this one won't protrude very far from the door, sorry. And that is intentional, as much as that sounds annoying. And the reason for that is it's to encourage this as the grip. So if that was on the door like that, you would come in like this, because there isn't actually probably enough space behind to get fingers in. And this whole thing being a circle and being the same on every direction, the idea is just to bit this, the interaction. And I think it actually succeeds with that. And it's another one that it looks at first glance very standard, like a standard doorknob. I mean, none of these are like world breaking in terms of design ideas, but the thought behind it, i.e. there was thought, it wasn't just a shape, is the interaction. Whereas say this one, for example, is further off, so there is this space here for you to come in like that. Same with this one. But yeah, so this one's built around the idea of this. This one is, again, one that looks really simple, and it is a very simple shape, but its idea is that it would go on a cabinet like that. So if you imagine this is the door here, so this is the grip, and then this curve is designed to essentially mirror the curve that the door would come out on. So effectively, as you're pulling it, you are going with the shape of the curve of the door, and two of them would be mounted centrally, mirrored. So you would have another one here. I should really print another one off actually, because you could see them like laid down like that. So you would have this here, and then another one here like this. And then when you open them, this angle is essentially following the arc of a 90-degree curve on a door. So again, looks really simple, but there is a little bit of thought behind how you interact with it. And I've had to put on one that I think is my second favourite. It's this one. Now this is definitely the weirdest one. So this is what I'm like affectionately referring to as the straw handle, because it reminds me of a drinking straw, the top of it. But the idea is that this is the interaction. So if you imagine it's coming in, I'll use my thumb, what they would use a thumb, but it's mounted on the door like this, having it going down, and you're coming in and pulling out like that. So this angle here is what creates the grip. You could of course grab it anywhere. I mean, you could have it this way, but then that you would be pressing down to pull out. And I just think it's a really unique handle, probably because a lot of people would be like, I'm not a fan of that as a handle, but you know, I'm not here to just design the exact same thing that everybody else has designed 100 times. So that's why I went around the idea of designing these based on how the tactile feel of them and how you actually physically interact with them, rather than first being the shape. Now, the shape matters, because if they don't look nice, then why would you ever put them on a cabinet? But yeah, this one was the one where I just went through it. My idea was thumb or forefinger. So how do you make a handle that leverages just that? You could have a hook, and I thought, well, if I make the handle itself feel hooked, and that's effectively what that is there as you pull it out. So yeah, that's the 8 handles that I've designed. These will all be available to backers in the coming week, I would assume. I'll add them one by one, because I need to sort the files out and get the images for product listings and things like that for backers. But I really enjoyed designing these. They're all designed in Plasticity, which is a great piece of software which I do live streams and modelling in, and I would recommend checking those out. And I would really recommend checking out Plasticity if you're interested in 3D modelling at all. But I won't go into Plasticity in this video, but I do have other videos which do go into it, and I actually have quite a few videos on my channel of me designing things in Plasticity, including all the VODs for my live streams. So anyway, if you think any of these are cool, just let me know in the comments. If you've got a favourite, let me know in the comments. If you would like to tell me the lottery numbers to play next week, put it in the comments. If you would like to put your daily journal entry, also put that in the comments. Effectively put anything in the comments, because it helps the algorithm. So yeah, that's me for today. I hope you've enjoyed that. And if you like this sort of thing and you like design and product videos, give the channel a like and a subscribe. And I will see you next week for another video. Thanks for watching.